When I saw Russia's scenario for defeating Europe in 72 hours, I was horrified. This isn't Russian propaganda. These are NATO's own war game results showing Europe would collapse in 3 days. I'm Megyn Kelly. For 2 decades, I've covered military conflicts, interviewed defense secretaries, and analyzed global security threats. But nothing prepared me for the classified NATO assessments I've reviewed. Europe can't defend itself, not for weeks, not for days, for 72 hours, then it's over. The documents I've obtained show NATO's own strategists believe European military forces would be overwhelmed in less than 3 days of conventional warfare against Russia. This isn't about nuclear weapons. This is about tanks, planes, and soldiers, traditional military power, and Europe has none. You think NATO is a powerful military alliance. You think European armies are modern and capable. You think decades of defense spending have created formidable military forces. The reality is that European military capabilities are a facade, a paper tiger designed to look threatening while providing no actual defense. Let me be clear about my sources on this explosive story. During my Fox News years, I regularly interviewed Pentagon officials about NATO capabilities. I covered military exercises, defense summits, and security assessments. But the most revealing information came from informal conversations with American military planners who were increasingly concerned about European military decline. In 2019, I interviewed former Defense Secretary James Mattis. Off camera, he told me something that stayed with me. Megyn, we're not just carrying Europe militarily. We're covering for the fact that Europe has no military left. I thought he was exaggerating about political burden sharing. I now realize he was describing operational reality. When I moved to NBC, I had access to State Department cables about NATO readiness assessments. American diplomats have been warning Washington for years about European military inadequacy. Their classified reports describe European forces as largely ceremonial and incapable of sustained operations. Now that I'm independent at MK Media, I can reveal what those assessments actually show. Europe would be defeated by Russia before American reinforcements could arrive, and NATO knows it. The war games don't lie. And the results are terrifying. NATO conducts regular exercises to test alliance capabilities against potential threats. These exercises are classified, but their conclusions have leaked through military sources concerned about European vulnerability. Exercise Defender Europe, conducted annually since 2020, tests NATO's ability to respond to Russian aggression in Eastern Europe. The results are consistent and devastating. European forces are overrun within 72 hours in every scenario. Exercise Atlantic Resolve, which focuses on Baltic defense, shows similar outcomes. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania fall to Russian forces in 48 to 60 hours. Exercise Cold Response, conducted in Norway, demonstrates that even Scandinavian countries with relatively strong militaries cannot sustain operations beyond 3 days. The pattern is clear across every war game, every exercise, every assessment. Europe has 72 hours of military capability, then collapse. But the most shocking revelation isn't the timeline. It's the reasons behind European military weakness. This isn't about technology gaps or strategic disadvantages. This is about deliberate military decline disguised as peace dividend policies. European leaders have systematically dismantled their military capabilities for 30 years, not because threats disappeared, but because military spending competed with social welfare programs. Germany is the most devastating example. The German Bundeswehr was once considered among the world's most professional military forces. Today, it's barely functional. Germany has 183 operational tanks. Russia has over 12,000. Germany has 90 operational fighter aircraft. Russia has 1,400. But the numbers tell only part of the story. The condition of German equipment is catastrophic. A 2023 parliamentary report found that only 30% of German military equipment is operational at any given time. Tanks without ammunition, aircraft without spare parts, ships without functioning weapon systems. The German Navy has 4 operational submarines. 2 are constantly in maintenance. The other 2 rarely leave port because they lack trained crews. The German Air Force has 38 Eurofighter jets that can actually fly combat missions. The rest are grounded for repairs, maintenance, or lack of pilots. German army units routinely use broomsticks instead of machine guns during training exercises because real weapons are unavailable. This isn't incompetence. This is policy. German political leaders have deliberately starved military funding to maximize social spending. And Germany is NATO's largest European member. If Germany is defenseless, Europe is defenseless. France presents a different but equally problematic picture. French military capabilities are focused on expeditionary operations in Africa and the Middle East, small-scale interventions against irregular forces. France has no capability for large-scale conventional warfare against a peer adversary. The French military is designed for colonial policing, not European defense. France has 200 operational main battle tanks. Impressive compared to Germany, but insignificant compared to Russian armor capabilities. French logistics cannot support sustained operations beyond French borders. In 2011, France ran out of precision munitions after 3 weeks of bombing Libya. Against Russia, French ammunition stocks would be exhausted in 72 hours. The United Kingdom, traditionally Europe's most capable military power, has gutted its forces through successive defense cuts. The British Army has shrunk to 82,000 personnel, smaller than during the Napoleonic Wars, when the UK had 1/10 the current population. British tank strength has fallen from 900 in 1990 to 150 today. British artillery units have been eliminated almost entirely. The Royal Navy, once ruler of the seas, operates 2 aircraft carriers that rarely have aircraft. The UK has more admirals than functioning ships. British special forces remain excellent, but special forces can't defend territory against conventional invasion. Poland and the Baltic states understand the Russian threat and spend significantly on defense. But their forces are designed to delay invasion until American reinforcements arrive. The question is whether American reinforcements can arrive within 72 hours. And the answer is no. Moving substantial American forces from the United States to Eastern Europe requires weeks of preparation and deployment time. American forces stationed in Europe are tripwire forces, small units designed to trigger American involvement, not to provide actual defense. The 82nd Airborne can deploy quickly, but airborne units can't stop armored offensives without heavy weapons and air support. American heavy forces require sea lift or airlift transportation across the Atlantic. Under contested conditions, this process could take months. So European defense depends on European forces holding for weeks until American reinforcements arrive. But European forces can't hold for 72 hours. The weapons and ammunition situation is even worse than personnel and equipment problems. European militaries maintain ammunition stocks for 2 to 5 days of high-intensity combat. Russia maintains ammunition for months of sustained operations. During the 2022 Ukraine conflict, European countries exhausted their artillery ammunition stocks within weeks just from donations to Ukraine. They weren't even fighting. NATO estimates that European countries would need to increase ammunition production by 500% to sustain 1 month of conventional warfare. Current European ammunition production could support approximately 10 hours of combat at Ukraine war intensity levels. European air defense is virtually non-existent. Most European countries have no medium or long-range air defense systems. Germany has 12 Patriot missile batteries. Russia could overwhelm them with a single missile barrage. European air forces lack the numbers and capabilities to establish air superiority against Russian forces. European logistics networks are designed for peacetime movement of civilian goods, not military deployment under combat conditions. European armies cannot move quickly across national borders because each country has different railway gauges, road regulations, and bureaucratic procedures. Russian forces train constantly for rapid movement and combined arms operations. European forces train occasionally for peacekeeping and disaster relief. But perhaps the most devastating factor is political and psychological. European societies are fundamentally pacifist. European populations have no will to fight, no understanding of military necessity, no acceptance of casualties. European military personnel are trained for peacekeeping missions, not combat operations. European officers have no experience with large-scale warfare. European governments would face domestic political collapse before accepting the casualties necessary for serious resistance. The war game scenarios consistently show European forces surrendering or retreating rather than fighting to the death. This isn't cowardice. This is realistic assessment of political constraints on European military operations. European societies will not accept 10,000 casualties to defend Estonia. European politicians will not order military units into hopeless battles. So the 72-hour timeline isn't just about military capabilities, it's about political will. And Europe has none. Russian strategy exploits these weaknesses systematically. Russian war plans don't require defeating European militaries through superior force. They require demonstrating European helplessness quickly enough that European governments surrender rather than fight. Russian doctrine calls this escalate to de-escalate. Create a fait accompli so rapidly that opponents choose negotiation over continued conflict. Against European forces, this strategy would succeed within hours, not days. Russian advantages in armor, artillery, air defense, and logistics would create immediate local superiority across multiple fronts. European forces couldn't coordinate response because European military command structures are national, not integrated. By the time European governments agreed on response measures, Russian forces would control key transportation networks, airfields, and communication centers. European resistance would collapse, not from military defeat, but from political paralysis. Here's the most chilling aspect of this scenario. American intelligence agencies believe Russian leadership understands European weakness and may be planning to exploit it. Recent Russian military exercises have focused on rapid deployment and quick victory scenarios. Russian forces practice occupying territory and establishing control within 48 to 72 hours. Russian propaganda increasingly emphasizes European military weakness and American unreliability. Russian diplomatic messaging suggests confidence that NATO would not risk nuclear war over Baltic territory. This isn't necessarily preparation for immediate invasion, but it indicates Russian awareness of the opportunity created by European military decline. And the timeline is accelerating. European military capabilities decline every year while Russian capabilities improve. Germany plans to reduce defense spending as a percentage of GDP through 2030. France is cutting military personnel by 15%. The UK continues downsizing across all services. Meanwhile, Russia increases defense spending by 20 to 30% annually and modernizes equipment continuously. The capability gap widens every month. The window for Russian action grows larger. What does this mean for Americans? First, understand that European security depends entirely on American military power. European allies provide political legitimacy but no meaningful military capability. Second, recognize that defending Europe would require massive American casualties and enormous economic costs. Third, prepare for the possibility that Europe could fall to Russian control rapidly, fundamentally altering global power balance. Fourth, consider whether American interests justify the risks and costs of European defense. These aren't easy questions, but they're necessary questions that American policymakers avoid discussing publicly. European military weakness creates impossible choices for American strategy. The implications extend beyond European security to global stability. If Europe falls under Russian influence, China will be emboldened to act against Taiwan and other targets. American allies worldwide will question American commitment and reliability. The liberal international order built after World War II would collapse rapidly. But preventing European collapse might require American actions that trigger nuclear escalation. This is the strategic nightmare created by European military decline. American policymakers face impossible choices with catastrophic consequences. What can be done to prevent this scenario? Theoretically, European countries could rebuild military capabilities rapidly. Increase defense spending from 1.5% to 5% of GDP. Restore conscription. Rebuild industrial capacity. But European political systems cannot support such changes. European populations will not accept military transformation costs. European governments are trapped between welfare state obligations and security requirements. They've chosen welfare over security for 30 years. Reversing this choice would require admitting 30 years of strategic mistakes. European politicians lack the courage for such admissions, so European military decline continues while threats increase. American options are equally constrained. The U.S. cannot force European allies to spend more on defense. American threats to withdraw from NATO lack credibility because withdrawal would damage American interests more than European interests. American military capabilities, while superior to European forces, are overstretched globally. Defending Europe, Asia, and the Middle East simultaneously exceeds American capacity, so we drift toward crisis without solutions. The 72-hour scenario becomes more likely as European weakness increases and Russian confidence grows. Eventually, Russian leaders may conclude that the benefits of European conquest exceed the risks of American reaction. If they're right, Europe falls in 3 days and America faces impossible choices. If they're wrong, miscalculation leads to nuclear war. Either outcome reflects the strategic disaster created by European military decline. I'm telling you this not to promote panic, but to encourage realistic assessment of current security environment. Europeans live in denial about their military weakness. Americans live in denial about the costs of European defense. Both delusions increase the probability of catastrophic outcomes. Understanding the 72-hour scenario doesn't guarantee preventing it, but ignorance guarantees surprise when reality intrudes on comfortable assumptions. The war games are clear, the assessments are consistent, the timeline is accelerating. Europe cannot defend itself. America cannot defend Europe without enormous risks. Russia understands both facts. This is the strategic reality of contemporary European security, whether we acknowledge it or not. I'm Megyn Kelly. I've spent my career examining uncomfortable truths that powerful institutions prefer to hide. European military weakness is the most dangerous truth in contemporary international relations, more dangerous than terrorism, more threatening than nuclear proliferation, more destabilizing than economic crisis, because European weakness creates opportunities for aggression while constraining options for response. The 72-hour scenario isn't just possible. Under current trends, it's probable. Unless Europeans choose security over comfort or Americans choose isolation over alliance, this scenario becomes inevitable. The clock is ticking. European military capabilities decline, Russian confidence grows, American patience decreases. Something will break. The question is whether it breaks through Russian aggression, American abandonment, or European collapse. All three outcomes reshape global order fundamentally. None favor peace, stability, or democracy. This is the price of European military decline. This is the cost of strategic denial. This is what happens when civilizations choose comfort over survival. Whether you're ready or not, reality is coming. The 72-hour clock starts when Russia decides Europe is worth the risk. And every day that calculation becomes more favorable to Russia. This has been Megyn Kelly. And remember, in a world of strategic illusions, military reality is the ultimate arbiter. Europe's military weakness isn't a policy choice anymore, it's a strategic fact, and facts don't care about political preferences.